Okay, great. Well, why don't we go ahead and call the meeting to order and welcome everyone. We'll do a verbal roll call. Pete, are you here?
I'm here.
Alex, are you here?
I'm here.
And I'm here as well.
Great.
All righty.
So while we're on roll call, it reminds me, since Shar is not here, we need someone to take minute notes. Is anybody willing to take that task this month?
I will.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex.
Alex going to, okay, I defer to Alex. All right, do we have anyone that is online for public comment, or have you received any comments from folks today that they'd like to have read?
There was no called in public comment.
Okay, great, thank you.
And no email comments sent to me.
Okay, great. All right, let's look at our minutes from our September 9 meeting, and I'll ask you to review, and if there are no additions or corrections, I will ask for a motion to accept. Do you want to take a quick minute to look at them, or whatever you'd like?
I can make a motion to accept the minutes.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All right, all in favor of approving the minutes from September 9 meeting, say aye. Oh, actually, we have to do a roll call again. Peter?
Aye.
Alex?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. All right. So minutes are approved. Also attached to the email that Julie sent are the financials to receive and file dated September 30th. Are there any questions at all about those?
I'd like to make a comment, please. I noticed that the amount of interest is becoming smaller, and so I asked about it, and it turns out the general interest coming into the bigger fund has reduced from about a year ago. I think the number was, actually, let me, so in August of last year, the interest rate was 2.24, and this August it's 0.364.
Oh, wow.
So our portion is going from about $25 down to $2.21.
Okay.
So, I mean, the whole thing is not that big of a deal, but just if you see that there's a tenfold difference, that's what it is.
Gotcha. And in terms of clarifications on the $1,073 transferred to the Animal Shelter Fund, was that based on a contribution that came in that was then directed through us to their fund?
Yeah, and it was a long time ago. It was from their T-shirt fundraiser, even before we were set up.
Okay, got it.
But I think that will sit there until our time frame is such that, you know, it falls off.
Gotcha, okay. All right, so those have been reviewed and filed. Next up on the agenda is agenda adoption, I think. Yep. So does everyone want to take a quick look at the rest of the agenda that we set up at our last meeting? Does it still make sense as we had set it based on the extended time we've not been together? If so, I'll ask for a motion to accept and with a second.
So I have one item, the annual budget recommendation. I have not gotten far enough into building the draft budget to make a recommendation.
Okay.
So if that could be a discussion rather than a recommendation,
Okay.
that would be helpful.
Amend that to say discussion in the minutes. With that changes their motion to approve today's agenda.
Give me that one more time.
under new business, item number 14, we are changing the wording of that from annual budget recommendation to annual budget discussion.
Confirmed.
All right. Is there a motion to approve today's agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been approved and motioned and seconded. All in favor say aye. We'll do that via roll call. Alex?
Aye.
Pete?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. All right, and then last in the opening series of topics is payables. Request approval to pay for nonprofit corporation annual report fee, $20, and the D&O insurance to JLA insurance for $795. Now, we have not done this before, so I want to make sure we have a procedure that these will be presented by Julie, and then we will, make it as a motion for all of them or individually? I think it would be all together.
I think you could do either way, but I can make a motion to approve the payables as presented by the executive director.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion on this? Julie, any background you want to give the group?
Sure. So the Laura Nonprofit Corporation annual report fee, that had a deadline before we met again. And so I went ahead and paid that myself. So the reimbursement would come to me directly rather than Laura, the state. And I hope, once we get these things in order, I won't have to do that kind of thing anymore. But, depending on the timing, things like that might happen. The other piece is I talked to the finance department, and what they need as requirements for check reimbursement is the signature of the treasurer, the signature of the chair, and draft meeting minutes with the approval of those expenses. So if they have those three things, then they're ready to cut a check for us. So that, begs the question of how when we're doing these Zoom calls, would I get the two signatures? And I'm open to discussion about what works best for you all.
Sure. That could be, are they keeping folks out of City Hall right now? Still?
Yes, except for voting. We're not open formally yet.
Okay.
So one of the ways I was thinking is perhaps if each of you sign each of those invoices and just send them to me, and then, in this case, the finance department would get a copy of our minutes, a signed copy by each of you for each of the expenses. That might be the easiest way. So nobody has to drive, and if you can just sign it and scan that document back, or if you have an electronic signature, just pop it on there.
Okay. All right, let's plan to do that where we just email it back with a signature so you can have that.
That's fine. Do you need, Julie, did you mention you needed each of us or just the treasurer, myself?
She said each.
Oh, each board member?
No, just you and Tom.
Oh, okay.
The treasurer and the chair.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
Yep, I can do that.
All right.
So then the signature on each of those.
Okay.
So the invoices, I can't toggle back and forth every time I do it. It seems my computer freezes up. Did you send those invoices to us to print and then?
I did.
You did? Okay. We'll do that then.
Okay. So we've clarified our process going forward. We'll do everything electronically and send it back individually. So Julie has both of them to submit for payment.
All right, sounds great. And then could we make a decision about how the payables will happen with the motion? If the motion will be the total list or each one individually, or the total list with something pulled out if there needs to be more detail on it?
I think in this case, because these are both pretty straightforward, we can approve them both together and maybe make that our preferred process. But if there's something that when there's a motion for approval in a second, if there's any hesitancy based on either a dollar amount that's higher than normal, unusual, or requires discussion, then maybe we would approve an outlier that way. But for now, let's plan to keep things moving smoothly by approving them as a slate, if the group agrees, more as an operating principle than a motion.
I would agree with that.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table to approve both of these, with Pete and I sending in signatures on both independently. I'll ask for a vote of approval, and we'll do it via roll call. Pete?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well.
Who seconded that?
I think you did.
Okay.
It's gonna be an easy meeting with there's one of you's the motion maker, and the other is the seconder. All right, with that, we can move into topics and presentations then. We'll start with Julie's report.
Okay, let's see, I think I can share my screen. Okay, can you see it? Can you see the director's report?
Yes.
Okay, so a number of things happened since we met the last time. Most notably, our fiscal year 1920 990N submission was taken care of. And the Laura Nonprofit Corporation form was filled out and paid. So we're all set on state documents and IRS documents for the year. Also, if you can see behind me, can you see this big $16,000 4-foot check from Robertson Brothers?
Looks. That's the most beautiful background, virtual background I've seen in all my Zoom days.
I know it is good. So I met Darian Newbecker and Richard for Darian's filming session over at Robertson Brothers Homes. And this was the check he used for part of the filming, and now it is in our possession. So I thought it might be nice, oops, I should go this way, to see Robertson Brothers and then $16,000. So that was taken care of. I set up a GoFundMe account for the fundraiser, and am struggling a bit with the payment setup because GoFundMe uses PayPal, and PayPal wants us to be part of their PayPal Giving Fund, which is a nonprofit. But to be part of that, we have to send in our legal documentation and a copy of our bank statement with our legal name on the bank statement, which of course causes, an issue because we don't have a bank statement. So I'm trying to work through that right now, and I would, just put that out there in case we can't move forward the way we're going. We may need to consider opening a bank account with our a bank account with our name on it, so that we can do these smaller items. And it would be a bank account where, we leave enough money in so that it doesn't get closed, but it's for particular items. When the money comes in, then it immediately is taken out and given to our account with the city. So I'll let you know at the next meeting, but that's something we may need to consider. And if we do go that route, that brings up an issue we talked about a few months ago, and that is other nonprofits that will dedicate an amount of purchases, namely Amazon and Amazon Smiles program. We could sign up and be one of the listed charities so that when people buy something, we get a percentage of their shopping cart amount, but we can't do that without having our own bank account. So that second part is just a reminder that we've run into this before. Okay. Let's see. Paul Brake has set up a meeting with Kitch to discuss continuing to move the decision about the 295 versus the 701 financial setup. And Mark has also been in touch with Kitch, and they've been doing some things back and forth. So we don't have any decisions made or recommendations to bring now, but just so you know, the process is still moving. And I think that's about it. Oh, conflict of interest disclosure sheets. I have 3 of 4, so we're doing very well. And Alex, I still need your headshot too. So that's my report. Thank you. Any questions?
Nice work.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Julie. All righty. And is Mark on the line?
It doesn't look like he is.
All right, well, we will skip over his report if he's not able to attend today. And we
Should I send him an email right now while you're?
Sure, we can move on and we can go back in the time frame if he's for some reason otherwise occupied. We can go back to his report and we can keep moving. Thanks for sending that email.
Okay, I'll do that right now.
So unfinished business, I think Sharp might have had the majority of information, but Julie, you may have some of it on the kickoff event video.
Yeah, let me finish this email to Mark. Okay, yeah, so I think you're right. Shar would have more details, but what I know is that Richard has filmed 2 of the 3 charities, so Open Hands Food Pantry and Blessings in a Backpack. He also filmed Robertson Brothers and Pete at OCC with a student who made our logo, and my clip. So I think we only have 1 left, and that is of the Salvation Army. And then it's a matter of putting all of those clips together.
Okay.
So we have the GoFundMe account is built. We need to remedy the money receiving setup. And we have our ROCF webpage up, which is an item a little bit further into the agenda. So I think all in all, we're probably 70% done or so. And I know that Richard told me he would be very busy this week with meetings just like this, but he would start looking at the clips at some point in the next week or 2 weeks.
Okay, great.
Do you have any questions about the kickoff? Oh, I'm sorry, I should have said Richard also filmed Tom, right? Tom, you had a chance at the library?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
All right, well, why don't we continue to just leave that in unfinished business then, and Shar can report if she's able to join us today or at our next meeting as the final components come together.
Okay.
We need to discuss the final draft of our internal financial controls policy. And that is not in the email. Is that a shareable document?
Yes, I will, it's loading. And loading. Sorry, one moment. All right, I'm gonna share it in it with the marked up edits based on our conversation. So with that, based on our conversation before, just as a quick reminder, sorry, I was looking at the minutes as well. If there were any things to call forward. As you'll recall, we've been looking at some of the policies that we feel we need to have as we especially accept funds. And so what you should see on your screen is what we're suggesting is an internal financial controls policy. Back to the conversation about the payables earlier as well. So we may have to make an update. But the idea here is that we have something that helps us understand how to process our financials. With that includes things like having an audit, what we'll do for banking, and I won't step through every piece, but just trying to help everyone recall the conversation that we had before. And then what was in particular, so we said that we would have set a budget, a revenue and expense budget, as opposed to all the items that Kitch had initially recommended, because we don't feel like these things were necessary at this time. The revenue and expense budget would be sufficient. And we also removed the component on grant approvals, just that the board would make those approvals. And in part, we were waiting for what we just discussed related to payables, that it will need, like, the process that we have there. So I will add that in. I can send this for review. I know we've talked about it a couple times, so I just wanted to lift up. The third, well, really the big item around it is limits, whether or not we should set limits. This is where there's a conversation that we left off last time, whether or not there is just a certain amount that Julie is authorized to spend, but given the conversation from the city's financial team, I guess I'm looking to you, Julie. Should we just update this to, it doesn't really matter what the check maximum is, because at any time it needs to be approved by Tom and by the chair and by the treasurer, and then submitted to the city. So I guess, does that make sense?
I think so.
So really what I can update this really quick here in a moment to reflect what we just approved as far as the payable process. Does that make sense? Any questions, or do we want to dig into any component, or just kind of look into to everybody?
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't mind, pushing this question along. What if we need something small, some kind of office supply or postage to send out a fundraiser or something? I think it's my understanding from last month's conversation that all of the expenses, no matter what size they are, need to come in front of the board and be approved. So can we just, am I understanding that correctly?
That is how we left it early September. I'm wondering, given the requirements about any payables anyway, whether that's from the city requiring the 2 sign-offs from both the chair and the treasurer, whether that just aligns. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Could you say it again, Alex? I'm sorry.
I'm wondering if the minimum requirement is that the chair and the treasurer have to sign off on any payables. So is that just how we should manage it, and then it's reported to the board? I know we left it as that the board would have to approve every individual item. I'm just thinking to your point, Julie, that there's some things, sorry, I was trying to pull up the director's report, that are just kind of a matter of course as far as business goes, that we should kind of bake in that the board doesn't need to see, like this expenditures below $100. You know what I mean? Something like that. Pete, you look like you have thoughts.
Yeah, something I had just thought of, maybe we could word it where, I'm just kind of reading the detail here. See, this shows, I guess I'm a little confused here. So this is check writing a maximum dollar authority. So is this saying that Tom and I think it feels like we're contradicting ourselves. We're saying that Tom and I have unlimited authority, but yet the board's approving all of the bills. So, it seems to me like the board, to me, it seems like the board would approve the bills. I'm not sure why you technically need Tom and I to sign off then on the actual invoices with finance. That confuses me a little bit. If the board approves it, it seems like you should be able to show that it's been approved. But I do think that there is a practicality of having Julie go ahead and approve some of these. I wonder if we had a threshold that said, look, Julie can approve individual invoices that are $250 or less. Okay, I wouldn't put a maximum of $1,000 a year on it. I would just say anything $250 or less. She can go ahead and approve. But I think that the board should approve all bills. In other words, if something comes up and it's like the $25, she should be able to approve that, but then include it on the list of bills at the next board meeting where we approve all of them, including the $25 that she already approved. You know what I mean? So that there's full transparency, but yet we're not holding things up for $25, or we're not holding things up that are less than $250. She can go ahead and take care of those. I mean, I guess that's what I would propose.
That makes sense to me. The other thing, and that's part of why I was pushing this kind of a policy too, based on the conversation with the payables, the only way, Julie, that you would be able to make that kind of like any payment would be from like you. I'm trying to think how to phrase this. The only way to get an official check from the Civic Foundation would be as if Tom and Pete sign it, correct? Like send you an electronic signature. So if there was a time when you needed to spend like the $25, let's just use $25 as an example, the only way that we would be able to pay it, since the money is held inside the city, is for you to pay it personally and then be reimbursed. Is that correct? Because that's what we were just working through.
I wonder if the finance department would consider not requiring the chair's signature and a treasurer's signature on an invoice that is less than $250 based on what our rules are going to be in the policies.
Okay.
I'm certainly willing to go back and ask them about that.
Yeah, because to me that makes sense, and that's kind of why I just put 250 as because I figured that would collapse a lot of the main office stuff that we might need. So anyways, and I put the annual limit on there just for the sake of having an annual limit in case the finance team needed something, but I would be fine with removing it as well.
So I wonder, could a letter be crafted either from Tom or Pete, with the plans of, a limit of $250 and request that be allowed to move through?
Yeah, we could take this resolution in a different form or the same form. And I think that would serve the same purpose. We could obviously word it differently if we'd like. More of a letter to your point.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to either have Tom's signature on something or Pete's or both of them.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, I like both of them. I think that's smarter.
And then this would, I mean, I'm only putting the fact that the both of you can authorize unlimited funds because that makes sense, but obviously it would be with board approval, right? So we could also constrain that saying, I don't know.
But does that I mean, it just feels like that's a contradictory. Like, so why would we need unlimited authority to approve something if the whole board has to approve it?
Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, I could just remove it.
No, it's like,
I'm
I
just
think,
trying to articulate who actually has to sign those checks though, too. That's why I was after.
yeah. See, I think it seems like all right, there's two separate things here. There's check writing, which would be, I guess, if we had our own separate bank account and we were going to write checks from it. But that's not the case. Now, I suppose if we open up our own bank account and we were going to transfer money, but the city, should be able to do that for us. So it seems to me like until we have a bank account where we're actually writing a check or we're approving something be moved out of a bank account that the city can't do, there's really no need for Tom and I to have that authority. It seems to convolute it a little bit. Did we just lose Alex?
I think we did, and we lost the screen share too.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'm on my mobile device, so I won't be able to share my screen. So yeah, what I caught, and I apologize, but what I caught from UP is that they're two separate things, and that's typically how I've approached it too. Like one is check signing authority, and the other is spending authority, which we can definitely make two separate resolutions for as well.
Why don't we do this? So, okay, how about you have two sections in this policy? You have the approval of bills, right, or payables, or however you want to call it. And I think in there we make a statement that the board approves all bills. And then it's a paragraph, right? And then you have another sentence that says the executive director has the ability to authorize payment of bills that are $250 or less. And how do we word this? That are, I'm not sure how to eloquently word this, but then the executive director has to bring those bills that he or she authorized to the board.
Maybe in the monthly payables, even though they're paid, they need to be listed in the payables.
Yeah, so it's like all bills all payables are to be approved by the board. The executive director has the discretion to authorize payables that are individual payables that are less than $250 prior to board approval, something like that.
Yep, got it.
And then I think you have a separate, to your point, Alex, we have a separate section that says the treasurer and the chair, the signatures from the treasurer and chair are needed for, let's see, are authorized, what's the word? Bank signatories or something like that.
Yeah, I said signatures from the chair and treasurer needed for any remittance by the ROCF. Said
And I
with
would,
board approval, or
Um,
just say clearly like that they need to have beyond each sign.
I would say that we're authorized signatories on bank accounts. We're authorized. It doesn't mean, so, because here's where we don't want to conflict is that for the checks that are being written, I mean, like right now, all of the checks that are being written, it's being written by the city. And I wouldn't want to contradict what the city's doing, because I wouldn't want the city to say, well, wait a minute, we're not authorized to write these checks because you just issued a policy that says the only two people that are authorized to write checks are the treasurer and chair. What you could say is we are authorized signatories. We're not, in other words, you have a policy that says if we open up a bank account and that bank needs there to be two signatories on there, we are authorized to be those two signatories.
Mhm.
It's less prescriptive, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then I think that works.
Tom, thoughts?
I've been thinking about our overall finances, and did we come to a consensus on what we'd like Julie to be able to handle, and so that we have provided her some freedom? Are we it seems like we had conflicting opinions last time about that. So I'm wondering if there's I like all this of the accountability, double signature, and all these processes as well. But I do wonder if we've become overly complicated in it, so that Julie can handle some more of the lower level expenses, just to keep us moving quickly. That's my only thought on any of this.
Well, with this, what we just said in this policy, she has the ability to, if something comes up that's $250 or less, she has the ability to approve it on her own. Doesn't need our signature. But she does have to bring that back with the rest of the bills at the next board meeting for full board approval. And that provides the transparency. My hope is that with this policy, the city would not require anyone, the board and the chair or treasurer, to sign off on any of the payables, that we would be able to submit a copy of the minutes showing that it's been approved, and that should be good enough. That's my hope.
And Julie, are you okay with that threshold? 250, 500?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that will be plenty, because it seems to me anything bigger than that, it's going to be about an event or, some fundamental infrastructure for the foundation, and those types of things. I would prefer to have, conversation about that with the board and buy-in and so forth. So yeah, I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah, I was going to say with that, we could pre-plan some of that too. We could always make a special resolution for it.
And with one of the expenses that we talked about earlier today, you had to pay for it out of your personal expenses and be reimbursed by the city after our approval as well. Just seemed key, and that you would have to expend any of your personal resources for anything that's a civic foundation activity is to be. I'd hate to have you be in that position.
Okay, thank you.
And this would prevent that from happening.
Yeah. So
Okay.
is the dollar amount adequate, 250 or 500, or does that feel like it's a safe amount?
I think at this point, 250 sounds fine. If we get to a position where, there are items more regularly that are more than 250, I think we can always come back and make an adjustment to the policy.
And we are still kind of in our startup of spending
Right.
cycle to be able to analyze what were our regular expenses too. So,
Yes.
so that's my philosophy is that you having to pick up any of our expenses to be reimbursed. I'm glad we've addressed that.
We could put a.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and if we need to adjust it in the future, then to take it up so that we're not hampered by it. I'm fine with that.
Along those lines, what I was going to say is we could put a provision in there that says, emergency purchases or exceptions can be granted to that dollar threshold for Julie. If it can be granted by both the board chair and treasurer. So what I would envision is we're not having a board meeting, let's say for a month, maybe it's two that for some reason, right in the summertime, and something has to be paid and it's $300 and it's just clearly that we need to pay this. In my mind, if you emailed Tom and I, and we both responded that we approve, that should be good enough. And then it goes back, on to the full approval of the bills at the next meeting, but at least you didn't hold things up. I think that's a good checks and balance. Because I realize if the board chair and the treasurer authorize that, I'm sure it's going to be fine. If we have concerns about it, we'll tell you, well, we have to have an emergency meeting or something. So that could give you some flexibility there.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind about that, and I appreciate the thinking because it would make work a little bit easier perhaps in certain circumstances, because we have to follow the Open Meetings Act.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that things like that can be done through email, but Mark is now with us. So Mark, if you heard that last conversation, could you chime in about it? And you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I apologize. I've been having what do you call it, firewall issues to get online.
Nope.
I just got on about maybe 30 seconds ago, so I didn't hear the entire conversation about authorization, or if you could just give me a list of it.
So here's kind of what we are proposing. We want to make sure there aren't any violations of the Open Meetings Act, that all bills would be approved by the board. However, the executive director, Julie, would have the ability to authorize payment of bills that are $250 or less prior to board approval. And then what we were talking about is if for some reason there's an emergency situation where something needs to be paid and it can't wait until the next time we can get together, that that she could be granted authorization to approve a bill prior to full board approval, but she would need approval by the treasurer and the board chair.
And we would do that in writing via email, so there would
We would
be,
do that in writing, but it would all bills would always come, whether Julie's already authorized them for payment or not, would all come to the full board for approval.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that that's a violation of the OMA, so long as the written resolution allows for pre-authorization.
Okay. Because the transparency is still there that all bills would be
Yeah.
coming to the full board. Okay.
I mean, that's sort of the way it works with the city. I mean, the department heads, well, their budgets are approved and they have authority to spend up to a certain limit without city commission prior or subsequent approval. Then those listed bills do go to the city commission for the ones that have been paid due, the ones that are over that amount for approval. So I don't necessarily think that that's a violation. No, I don't think that's a violation of the Open Meetings Act. I think that that complies pretty well with what the city of Royal Oak is doing right now.
Okay, great.
So what I've written is
And the amount, for instance, is the amount, for instance, is approved. The amount, the limitation approved by the city commission once a year during its budget approval meeting. Am I still being heard?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, because all of a sudden everybody started moving in slow motion.
Yeah, you're freezing up a little bit.
So I don't know how. I don't know how good my, which is why I'm not doing video.
Yeah, you're a little slurry, but we're making it out.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I've written then is I've cleaned up some of the language, and if you can make me a co-host again, I can share real quick. But I'll probably do a little bit more work after to send out, or if we feel like it's appropriate, we can all review and approve. But
Alex, I'm sorry, Alex, will you try to share?
yeah, success. So I'm gonna. This is a resolution of authority. There.
Any chance to blow that up? Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Is that okay? I can zoom in more.
No,
Oh, that's
that's
good.
good.
This is a resolution, yada yada. So now therefore resolved that for the corporation, the following authority levels shall apply. And I just wrote the Royal Oak Civic Foundation Executive Director may authorize bills that are or less than $250 prior to board approval. Those payments must be listed in the payables for the preceding meeting for review and approval by the board. The limit may be exceeded in urgent situations if approval is provided by both chair and treasurer. That gets to what you were talking about, Pete.
Yeah, perfect.
And then I also put in the line, just so it's clear for everyone every time, the board will review and determine expenditures of the proceeding meeting and retains all decisions and spending authority. Just that's true. So I figured I would just say it. Obviously, it's like, here's the first step, there's the second step.
Perfect.
And then I just added a line, signatories, the chair and treasurer are authorized signatories on all. So I'll just do that on all ROCF bank accounts. I feel like that's pretty direct and
That's
clean.
perfect, Alex. Nicely done. That's perfect.
Yeah, I have one suggestion, and that is, if indeed we get an ROCF bank account, it's in my previous nonprofit work, it was always that there were 3 signatories in case one of, a 2
Yeah.
was out of town or something. That each check needed 2 signatures, but there were 3 people to pick from. The 2 main people, and then like a sub.
I'm open, but I think 3 is a lot. It seems like 2 would be plenty, but
So I think
But if Tom is, if Tom is out of town and we need something signed, what do you
what I was
do?
going to say is, if Tom is unavailable, there's already a backup for that, which is me as the vice chair. 'Cause if Tom, you were unable to fulfill your duties because that's in our bylaws. I believe the case could be made that if I was acting chair, then this would also apply to me. But if Pete, you were unavailable, there would not be a backup. However, since we're able to do it electronically and we're not really able to travel in this world, I'm thinking more of, not that I would want this to happen to either of you, but hit by a bus. But then if all 3 of us are in the same bus, that'll be in or on.
Yeah, so
okay.
one of the things that's a little bit different is if indeed we end up with an ROCF bank account for these small events, the bank requires formal documentation of those who are given permission to be signatories. So just because you are the vice chair, that doesn't change the obligations that the bank has relative to check signing from an account. So I understand where you're coming from, but I have a feeling that wouldn't fly with them.
So I see your point. So you could have the chair, vice chair, and treasurer authorized signatories. That way, if something
Yeah, and-
happened, you could put the other person on the bank account very quickly to have them transact business.
Yeah, and in my experience, it's not that quickly. When you go in for a
Sure.
signatory sign up, all 3 people need to be there at the same time with
Okay.
picture ID. And so it's not a simple, just, hey, I'm Pete, I'm from the foundation, put me on the bank account. Tom has to go there and sign the same document that you're signing on to.
Thought is that if there was that's in the event that we needed a 3rd signatory, like as a backup or something like that, it would probably be it would take a while for that to get approved, unless you're saying we do it all now.
I'm
I thought
suggesting that we
it
do
wouldn't
it
fit an urgent situation unless we.
right. Yeah, I'm suggesting that we do it now, that if indeed we get a bank account, all checks require 2 signatures, but you have 3 people. So 2 main signatories and a sub, just in case. And then all of the nonprofits I've been in, we've always had 3 and sometimes 4. I think 4 is too many, but I've been in situations where it was very helpful to have a 3rd person.
Okay. So what do you want, a chair, vice chair, and treasurer? What would you, Julie, in your experience, what positions have had that authority?
Well, in the nonprofit where I was the executive director, I was one of the signatories. But in the other nonprofit, I was the treasurer always, and it was the chair, the treasurer, and then another person part of the executive team. So I don't know that there is, a
Okay. Well, why don't we do executive director, chair, and treasurer? Because the reality is, I mean, so if you need 2 of us, it's easy. The executive director is probably the easiest person to get, to sign this check, right? And then that executive director just needs one of the other 2 board members. I think that probably makes the most sense.
But yeah, I would write it so that in the event that the chair or treasurer is not available, the executive director may sign. Like that's a third, like the 3rd option. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Tom, what do you think?
Sounds good.
Julie?
So one of them would always have to be available because I would not be able to sign on my own. So either
Right.
Tom and Julie, or Pete and Julie, or Tom and Pete. Because a check will always need 2 signatures.
Wait. Could you say as an alternate, the executive director will act as an alternate or something like that?
Yeah.
Maybe that's easier to.
I love when it tells you your grammar's too complex. Mark, you probably live in that world with Microsoft Word telling you. You could just say may. Sorry. I think this is appropriate. And then I did replace secretary with chair and treasurer. However, since this is a resolution of the board and having been a secretary for a couple other boards, we should leave it as secretary, and then Shar is able to, or the secretary of the board, whether that's Commissioner Douglas or someone in the future, is able to provide this document because it is an authorized approved thing. Because you would just approve it, like provide this with the minutes of the meeting that it was approved at, in my experience. Yeah, Pete?
Say that again?
So when I've had to submit some of the things that Julie was talking about, we've just provided the minutes of the meeting that it was approved at, and then this resolution that says it was approved at that meeting. Does that make sense? So that is the authority. So, and who signs that is the secretary.
Right. I would agree. I'd agree.
And Tom, you also obviously have the authority as the lead, so you could provide the same document. Which, to your point, Julie, that also gives the backup. Which, to be fair, Julie, you'd be able to provide this, and since we're also operating under Open Meetings Act, I think anyone would be able to find this online or something. So, anyway, cool. All right, I will. I'll send this back
I'm
around.
sorry. Hey, Alex. Are you going to take that whole chart out on the last page?
Yeah, I had done so, but then it told me that you wouldn't see it, that it had been edited. So here is the simple markup.
Do you want us to approve this, Julie, today with these proposed changes, or do we want to wait and bring it back next month? I guess in a way it'd be nice to approve it today so you have that authority for next month, so things, in case things pop up. But, or do we want to wait for Shar? That's a good point too.
Yeah, you know what? That's up to you all. If you would like to wait for Shar because this is one of our policies, I think 1 month is not going to be a big deal.
Well, especially because the secretary would sign it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will, I'll make these changes so it's clean, and then I'll send it around to all of us too.
Okay, and then so we'll leave it under unfinished business to review the next version of it at our next meeting and approve then.
Yep.
Okay.
Good work. That's good. Well done. We were struggling for months on that. It just all came together. So that's great.
I mean, these are not, as you know, not simple decisions.
Well, some of it too is you have to live in it a little while to know what it is we need to do. So, and I think
Yeah.
just actually this is the first time we paid. I think we had bills to really pay that I can remember. So I think that was helpful just to see that process and how we really need to make it work.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. So, hey, Alex, when you're done with the final, will you send it to me and then I'll include it as part of the packet so it doesn't get lost?
Yep.
That would be great. Thank you.
All right, and then we'll plan to review and finalize at our meeting in November, which is just a few weeks away. That's not, it's not that big a wait the more I think about it. All right, with your indulgence, we can go back up on our agenda to Mark, and he can provide any updates for his report if you'd like.
Yes, well, the major report was supposed to be on the a report from Kitch on the appropriateness of the designation of the community fund as 701 funds. And it's quite frustrating. We've been reaching out to the fellows from the individual from Reuben Robson for over a month. I've sent emails and tried phone calls, and counsel from Kitch has been doing it, and we have not been successful. So I've instructed the auditor, not the auditor, Kitch, to complete the memorandum without their input. I have no idea what's going on. I've talked to Julie Rudd a couple of times as to reaching out to this individual and getting the work done. So I have no idea why Reuben has not reached out to us after a number of requests.
Okay, interesting. Hey, Mark, just so you know, I mentioned earlier in the meeting that Paul Brake has a call on Monday with Mike Vecchione to touch base, to introduce each other, to introduce themselves to each other. And so I can let Paul know what you're experiencing also, and perhaps together they might be able to do something.
I was aware that they were going to talk or meet, and it wouldn't hurt, but I think Paul already knows.
Okay.
It wouldn't hurt.
We memorialized in our minutes of our meeting at all, so if we make any choices based on their lack of input, that we both documented that, and I think informed them of that documentation as well too. This is their responsibility to advise on.
I think once Paul maybe get involved, and it may dislodge a rock or two. I'm trying to be cautious here, but yeah, I think once Paul's involved, that things will start moving a little better.
Okay. Well, Alex, if you wouldn't mind noting in the minutes that there's been some lack of attention by this vendor, and that we'll follow up, have a report by next week, or I mean, this is a group. Are they going to be billing the city extra time for that advising, or is it part of an overall contract?
Which vendor?
The one that's not responding.
I don't know. They do have an overall contract, but that's generally just for the audit. I don't know what else is in their contract.
Well, just that anything that we're working on would be delayed because of a lack of response is to me unacceptable. So.
Understood.
Verify the name of the vendor, if you could. So I can type it in, right?
Vendor?
Yeah.
Raymond Robson.
I think they're just called Raymond, isn't it? Rehman.
That's right.
Wait, keep us posted, please.
I will.
All right, anything else in your report, Mark?
No, nothing else.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go back to our agenda. And create our vision statement, which I thought we did last time. Were we going to finalize?
No, we did a mission statement, and we keep pushing the vision off a little bit. But you know, I'm just thinking I can screen share this what we have so far. Let me get to that. Okay, can you see the vision, values, ideas sheet?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what we've got, and I don't know if this is something also that we might want to wait on for Shar, you know, given that you're a 4-person trustee at this point, and if we're missing one person, you know, it's 25%. Or if somebody is got a great idea, we can put it out there and then run it by Shar in November.
I love that we have the first 2 words of the vision statement at the bottom. I think it's a riot. We will.
It's a work in progress.
I love it.
It's a prompt, Tom. Come on.
Tom wants to add rock you in there.
I do.
I think this is a work in progress. I really do think we should wait till Shar is here. I'm more than happy to talk about it, but I know she's passionate about this, so.
Yeah, let's pend it then. I think that's fine. Is there any homework we want to assign ourselves to get prepared for it? Do we want to have bring some examples at our next meeting? Would that be helpful?
You know, I could look for some examples and give them to you now for homework. You know, I could find that in the next week, and that would give you a week or so, or 2 weeks to, you know, let it percolate a little bit and see if you can come to the next meeting with some ideas based on the samples.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind kind of prompting our thought process on it by sending some samples out, I feel like that would be helpful. Thank you for that offer. All right, so we'll keep moving down our agenda. So choose an annual meeting date. That one sounds like an easy one, I hope. The city works on are they on a calendar year, Julie?
Fiscal year July 1 through June 30, just like we are.
Okay, so does it make sense for us to follow that for our annual meeting so we are meeting and reporting in a cycle that matches theirs?
What is the purpose of an annual meeting date? Refresh my memory.
We are required to have one. It's just a public a moment to share with the community at large and our stakeholders that which we've done and are planning to do. It's also a way to, I believe, I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember what our bylaws say about like what business has to be taken at that time.
Oh, like kind of like an organizational meeting kind of thing, where you elect officers and.
We also
typically
financials as well and provide. Oh, go ahead, Alex.
So typically with our process being a little different from a traditional nonprofit, what with the city's involvement, because at the end of the day, the governance committee governance nominations committee comes up with individuals that might serve on the board, we all as the board approve a set of recommendations for the city commission, and the city commission is the one that actually makes the appointments. So, and if I recall, it's also the meeting of the member where they would then approve who is appointed to the board. And when we were discussing this before, we did talk about how we would have basically like the city commission would have to meet for 5 minutes as the member, and then do that business and then go on with their meeting. That's how we had initially scoped it. So sorry if I'm
Yeah, so this
remembering and
annual
sharing
meeting,
at the same time.
is this annual meeting kind of like the time where we would give like an annual report to the city?
Yes.
Like, so it would really be at the city's, one of the commission meetings.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is but we should still determine it for ourselves when that is. We left that pretty open in the bylaws. I apologize. You can tell that I was remembering as we were talking.
That's okay.
So the annual meeting of the member of the corporation shall be held at a time designated by the member, which is the city commission or the city, for the purpose of electing trustees and transaction of such business as may properly come before the meeting. In my opinion, to your point, Pete, so it would be set by the city. However, we should probably give a point of view on when that is, and so that we can then provide some type of an update on what's taken place and then the year ahead. The other references that we have to an annual meeting in our bylaws include basically when our board is elected. So looking at it from the board perspective, and that we have some work that we have to do prior to the annual meeting, back to that whole process of recruiting board members, reviewing, submitting, voting on behalf of the board, and then giving it to the city commission. So just thinking about the lead time for that. Sorry, I gave you a lot. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah.
Or I can.
So are we looking to have like our own annual meeting separate from picking a date that we're going to give an annual report to the commission?
We could.
Yeah, Pete, I think you made a really good call there on what is the purpose of our annual meeting, right? So we don't have traditional members. We have just one member, and that member also makes the final decision on our trustees. So in some ways, for efficiency, it seems like our annual meeting and their annual meeting could coincide. And so we could give a report of our work and our slate, and then they could, for the 5-minute period, act as the member and either approve the slate as written or make any adjustments that they see fit.
Will we do fiduciary reporting in that same meeting? Like, here's our impact in the year, here's our estimated budget for next year for any of their approval processes that we need to also coordinate?
Do they need to approve? See, and I think that's one of the items that goes back to the 295. If we sit as a 295, then our budget needs to be included with their budget. And when they approve the budget, then our budget's approved.
Okay.
Mark, does that ring a bell? And Pete? That if we're a 295, then we're subject to their budget?
Yes, that's my understanding. That's what I remember. Yes.
Okay.
So it's really dependent on the attorney opinion about whether we're independent or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it seems like we have to wait on this one until we have that answer.
You know, when we walk through it like this, I have to agree, Pete.
I think one of the things that we can think about too is a little bit to your question, Pete, as far as the purpose of the meeting is, we could separate out the annual meeting that we're required to have, which we have to wait for, I agree, with the kind of a community update or community conversation or something. You know, does it make sense?
Yeah.
Which obviously we're working towards with the actual kickoff event. So that could be our annual time to update or something like that too.
All right, well, back to this, and in our conversation, we'll identify all the components we think we need to do organizationally that are both required by the annual meeting, and what pieces of that annual meeting we want to use for reporting, whether it needs to connect to the city in a timing way, or at least promotionally to the community too, so that we're planning in our regular business cycle how we're promoting what we're doing for transparency and for impact.
Yeah, so Alex, is that something as governance committee that you can put together?
Yeah, just the overall process and
Yeah, and what needs to happen during that annual meeting?
yeah.
And for clarity, if we are going to start expanding our group, then we are going to nominate folks that the city then approves at their subsequent, and that can be done at any meeting though. They don't do that. They don't do that at a once a year meeting. They do that ongoing, don't they?
They get to make the decision about that. So I think once we get our process sort of in place, we could make the request to them.
I do like
For one of the meetings where they for the 5 or 10 minutes become the Royal Oak Civic Foundation member, and it's their, it counts as their annual meeting.
right.
Does that make sense? Because then once we, I think, the other piece is we need to start recruiting and be able to come to them with a slate.
Yes, and I wonder if, as part of our annual operations, then we also include in there an annual nomination of new directors as well, and we organize our elections into that as well. We can try and one important meeting, I think.
Seems like what we could do is, I don't know when the best time would be for the commission, but I could see, like, when do they approve their budgets? Probably, I'm guessing like April, May.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I could see
May, June.
May, June.
Yeah. Because the budget starts on July 1, right? The new budget.
So could we have like an annual meeting, like July? Our annual meeting would be July, where we kind of elect officers. We just take care of whatever, we need to take care of from a governance standpoint. But we do an annual report to the commission. Maybe that is, without locking it down, like a May. And at that meeting, maybe they could approve any members that need approval. So like May, June, we give them an annual report. After annual report, they would approve any members that we need them to approve. And then maybe like July, we would have our annual meeting where we would take care of the governance issues, any cleanup, in relation to that. I don't know.
And if we set up a situation, I'm sorry, Tom, if we set up a situation like that, then in July at our annual meeting, it would be a portion of it could be a welcome meeting for the new trustees.
Yes.
Why don't we add, as part of our discussion, should we operationalize what business we have to do at what times, knowing that we're connected to the city, that they would do a visioning program. Don't they typically do that in January?
Mm-hmm.
So
late January.
So if we're able to get some of the feedback of what the civic needs are from the city at that meeting. So let's look at our next agenda at the end of today's meeting and maybe put some specific points that we want to talk about, not only in identifying our annual meeting, but also the business and when we need to conduct it to connect to the city at the other meetings throughout the year. Have an operational guide, I guess.
And you know, if we put this on the agenda to discuss again next month, I think Shar will be very helpful for, you know, those the times of the commission doing their visioning and when the budget is brought forth, you know, when it's approved, and whether or not she thinks that it makes sense for us to kind of merge our items with theirs, or perhaps be completely separate so that we don't bog things down. Does that make sense?
It does, and maybe we'll have an answer on, you know, from the attorney as to you know, whether we're independent or not, or how independent.
I just sent out another email to Kitch during the pendency of the meeting. They've been very responsive.
Great. All right, well, why don't we then pin this to stay on the agenda for our next meeting, and then let's move into new business. Annual budget discussion. So where do we want to start with defining some of our expenses? Do we want to talk about our processes? Where would you like to begin this conversation?
I think, you know, I started writing some things down and I could only think of a few. So how about I share my Excel spreadsheet, and then maybe if you all have some brainstorm ideas for me, I can pop those in and then clean it up, bring it next month. Okay. So sorry, I'm having a little bit of a apologies for this taking so long. I have two screens I'm trying to work through right now. Okay, you know what, oh, there it is. Okay, can you see that small spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so that's what I could think of. You know, we expect to have an additional donation from Robertson Brothers in the amount of $8,000 or so. And then annually we have that nonprofit corporation report, which is $20. Our D&O insurance will be an annual fee of $7.95. And then I was thinking one of the items that we talked about 6 months ago or so was to purchase fundraising envelopes that are branded with our logo and our you know, set up with the donation information already printed on the envelopes. And I did a little bit of research to find out prices, and it seemed as though that it was between like $75 and $120. So I put in the upper end. I think another item going forward, not for this year, because we still do the 990N, IRS 990 forms. Once we get bigger, you know, we'll have some kind of an expense associated. But maybe I don't put that on here because this is the 2021 and we've already done our 990 for this year, right? Okay, so I am open for some brainstorming. Anybody?
So I would put, have we spent the money this year for the 990?
There was no 990 fee because it's a 990N. It's
Okay.
like 3 questions on the IRS website,
Okay.
and then you turn it in. So there's no cost.
Okay.
Will that change in future years as we become more complex?
Yes.
And what's the anticipated fee that we would pay then?
So I don't know at this point.
Because that's the
About 8 years ago, it was about $2,500 for a small nonprofit.
What is that? We
And that was
probably should just.
a 990 EZ. So if we get to a point where we're not using the EZ, then it becomes more expensive.
Okay, so we got roughly $1,000 in small expenses per year, and then a potential of another 2,500 or so in other filing fees.
But not in this fiscal year budget, Tom.
Right. I'm just thinking, what do we need to anticipate, and what fundraising do we need to make sure we're doing to cover our existence too? So we've got 14,000 in the bank, plus the 8,000 that's coming in.
You know, it may not be a bad idea to have like a, we're so new, it's hard to do this, but maybe to go out 2 years, you know, to almost have like a 2-year, so maybe a 1-year budget with a 1-year forecast, just to kind of give us some sense on, you know, what is the next 2 years, it's really a year and a half now, almost, look like. That might be helpful so that you have the ability to put like that 990 in there, and things that we can expect for the next year, so just for planning purposes. Ideally 3 years is nice, but I think that's way too far out for us.
Do we need to anticipate any of our potential fundraising expenses, fundraising grants as well? So at least we're starting to look at how much we need to
Plan to make versus what right now we're reacting to? Or should we plan to distribute $10,000 a year to Royal Oak groups over the next, per year, and what expenses would drive that if we're going to have a 20% cost to raise a dollar or something like that?
Yeah, Tom, you're thinking about some of the things that I was thinking about too. I mean, you first called it out. It's like $1,000 worth of some of the startup stuff, right? I mean, fundraising envelopes for me is kind of in that as well. But I like the idea of us setting some targets as well, like, a year or 2 years out.
Yeah, there may be, one of the expenses I can think of right now is software that allows us to mail quickly to a list. Like Constant Contact or, something similar. So there may be some software costs coming up in the next year. I'll put that here. But again, because we're a nonprofit, there is the TechSoup nonprofit, and they often have, you know, a large list of software packages that are substantially discounted. So I can look into those and start filling out this forecast estimated expenses.
So with that being said, maybe, you know, Julie, if you could see what the rest of the board here thinks, but maybe take a crack at like a 3-year, you know, budget. It's like a, you know, a 1-year budget, which is the year we're in, with an additional 2-year forecast, and just kind of placeholders, right? Just for planning purposes. And we can always adopt that. But what I do think is that we're going to need to adopt the budget for next year, right? Closer to probably, I'm thinking like May of 2021. So we'll have another crack at it where we can give a much more in-depth analysis. But I think kind of preliminarily, this is sort of sketching out, you know, what does the future look like over the next few years, so we can have some sense of how much money we need to raise and the direction that things are headed in, and not get tripped up into, well, that, you know, the 990 really doesn't belong to this year. Well, let's look a few years out. You know, what does our spending patterns look like typically?
Julie, do we have any upcoming salary obligation for you as well? Should we be starting to think through a percentage of our budget is your time?
I think, you know, that is probably a conversation that we can have after the determination of how the Royal Oak Civic Foundation sits within the city. It's my understanding at this point that the city is allocating, you know, a small portion of my time to the Royal Oak Civic Foundation in an effort to help get the foundation off the ground. So if indeed that is, you know, the way it's going to be, I would expect, you know, at least 2 years of that. But maybe if we're going out 3 years, it's something to consider. Or if things change and the Royal Oak Civic Foundation needs, you know, more time than I as the staff person can give.
Okay.
So, you know, one of the things I'm thinking about is what could our fundraising expenses be? And that one's difficult, not knowing what the future holds for fundraisers, in-person fundraisers. Because I think, you know, the amount of money that we'll spend on the kickoff is very minimal. But it's also a small fundraiser. You know, we're looking to match $7,500.
Got it. Okay. Any other expenses we should anticipate to give Julie some guidance as she takes a stab at this?
I'm thinking about some of those kind of the general financial components too, like if we need to, but I don't see them being significant. Like if we have to set up our own bank account, like what's the maintenance fees for that kind of stuff? You know what I mean? Like some of those kind of just operational expenses. Our website hosting, we've already paid for the domain name, and then it's hosted on the cities. So that's another thing that I'm thinking about. Thinking a lot of menial, like minimum expense items, but I know that you have software expense listed in 2123, but you know, at a point, do we have to get QuickBooks, like you mentioned, or you know, PayPal's not working, so we need to find a different way to like, do we need a CRM? Like, I'm just thinking about some of those things too.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need a board management platform? I don't know. I'm just throwing out random things.
Right. Do we need any type of preparation for an annual report and its distribution, or we assume that's all electronic on the foundation website, or on the foundation website would be the best place to list it?
Yeah, I
mean,
think
one
at
of-
this point,
Go ahead.
sorry, I think it, at this point, it would be on the foundation's web page.
I was thinking too, but if there's like, depending upon what type of support we were doing, right now we've identified a couple nonprofits to work with, so we wouldn't have to really do some things. But I know at different points people have shouted out things like scholarships and stuff like that. So my thought is that there would probably be some marketing expense related to that.
And now that we have a logo and things like that, well, we need to have some collateral production expenses that are baked in going forward. Graphic design expenses, unless we decide that, do we want to contract freelance the student who was helpful in designing all that, or what we think would be helpful, or if we stay connected to OCC on upcoming graphic design needs, if that's an opportunity.
Yeah, it definitely could be.
Okay. So I've listed donor recognition expenses. I expect that we'll run into some of those this year. And then collateral expenses, I think that's a good call, Tom.
Did we decide to do something to either thank, acknowledge, promote the student who designed all of our collateral as well? We'd had some conversations, but I don't know that we either decided something or we didn't. I don't remember.
Yeah, we had conversations at one point in time, I think, to have like a contest or something, but that never really materialized. We just concluded it was part of their curriculum. So I don't think anything was ever approved.
Okay. Do we want to,
And then,
part of acknowledgement and the PR element of this, do we want to, and we talked about they could make a donation, they could choose an organization to receive a grant from us. Was that what we just kind of
I remember that. I think part of the issue was the COVID and, having some delay in meetings, and then it just fell off of the table. So I'm certainly open to discussing that again.
I'd be in favor of doing something that helps to honor the student, because I think they did an outstanding job. And if there was either an honorarium that would be helpful to them for their education, if there was a contribution we could make to OCC to a scholarship fund in their name, or go back to the idea of that the student could pick an organization that was in Royal Oak, either one of the existing city groups or a nonprofit that is housed in Royal Oak, for a $1,000 contribution.
That's interesting. Maybe a graphic, like a scholarship in graphic design or something in that person's name. That would be kind of neat. And then we could. It's too bad we're in COVID, but we have like a scholarship lunch. We could have that, the student come and meet maybe the winner of that scholarship. I mean, we could do something like that.
Support. I do want to share. I have to go in a few minutes. I apologize. I didn't anticipate it hitting our quorum, which it will end up doing.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
Well, why don't we pen that into our next time discussion as well? Let's look at what business we can accomplish today. And since we do meet in just a few weeks, if we need to cut our agenda short and meeting short, I'm fine with that as well.
Okay.
Do you have any updates on the Royal Oak website, or do you want to pen that for our meeting in mid-November, Julie?
I am able to share it real time. And so, Alex, how many minutes do you have?
I can duck out in about 4 minutes.
Okay.
And I may go off camera if my little man discovers that I'm here.
That's awesome.
Okay, so I think we really have two things: the ROCF website and then set agenda for, well, we've sort of done that. Set agenda for the next meeting. Are we pretty clear on what's happening next month?
Yeah, I have three things already listed: the internal financial control policy review, approve, budget discussion. Actually, four things. Sorry, vision conversation, and the fourth item was. I'm sorry, I'm writing vision, so I blanked.
I think we're going to repeat most of the agenda. So all the unfinished business,
Yeah.
business pieces repeat 10, 11, 12, and 13. And then it looks like 14 and 15, maybe. Actually, we can just repeat last time's agenda very honestly.
Okay, all right, sounds good. So how about I try to share the website and I can show you what it looks like right now. It's kind of under construction, but it's live.
Could be a good activity for
So-
us to take a look at it afterwards too. Sorry, just throwing that out there. So you can give us a tour, but then we should also look at it.
Oh, it may take me longer to get this than you have. Okay, so I'm going to put that on that screen and try to get. Okay, now we'll try it. Share screen. There we go. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yep.
All right, so here is the main page. We have a couple different URLs. The easy one is romi.gov/ROCF. And then there are other multiple ways to get to this, but this is the first page, talks a little bit about our history and how we're going to have an open request for trustee applications in the future. And then it has our mission statement here. We have a sub-page about the foundation's trustees. And this is one of the items that your headshots are being used for. So again, Alex, I need yours when you get a chance.
Nice picture there, Tom.
A lot of Photoshop, trust me.
Okay, so, and then to the donations page, we have the foundation kickoff fundraising event listed here. A little bit of information about it, and I have some more to put here. And then the GoFundMe link, which takes a person directly to the crowdfunding fundraiser, where they can go ahead and donate. So that's what we've got so far.
Great, it looks nice.
I think it looks great.
Thanks. And then
Nicely done.
once this special fundraising event is over, the information that is a little bit further down, how to donate by mail. We have a seamless document that we're working on. And then also to donate general support to ROCF, they can click the PayPal donate button there. And then we also have a sub-page where if indeed they want to support specific city entities, they can go to each of those entities' pages, get a little bit of information about those. And then each of these entities already has their own donate page from PayPal. So that's the way it's set up right now. And it may be something that we want to review in the future once we get more of our basic financial setup in place, is to understand how is this money coming in and does that make sense for us? Okay?
Okay. So we'll give ourselves homework to review this. If you want to send a link out, or we know where the link is. This is live on the site now, correct?
Yes, it is, but let me back up. Okay,
Yeah,
although, you know what, you don't have to put in the 499, just put romi.gov/ROCF, and that takes us to our homepage.
Is there a, like on the, in other words, if you don't type that URL in there, is there a button to click on the homepage that gets you here? Okay.
Yeah, so if somebody goes to what's happening, we are in alphabetical order here, Royal Oak Civic Foundation. That link takes us back to the main page. But also if they hover on what's happening, they can go directly to it right here.
Got it.
So there are 3 ways that we know of right now to do it.
Okay, nice. So we've got our homework. In Alex's last minute, should we have a motion to adjourn so we can have a final business?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I will second. Sorry, I was just looking. I'm going to drag on my second by looking at if there's anything else that's new business that needs an update. So I second.
All right. We'll do a roll call vote for ayes and nays. Peter,
Yes.
Alex,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. So our next meeting date is on Wednesday, November. Hang on. Hang on. Why is this so difficult?
11th.
November 11th, 3 p.m.
Okay, so that will be TBD. We have to make sure that we can fit that in with the live stream. And also, I think there are some changes coming about for perhaps a Zoom webinar for our organizations. So I will try to get that as a placeholder and then be back in touch.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds great. Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone.
Okay.
Great work.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Good seeing you all.
Yeah.
All right.